just a quick comment as I introduce Marilyn. So, Marilyn sort of turned up and reached out, and then we had a conversation, and hey, I get this every student thing. Now, confession is, like, people reach out to me all the time, and a lot of times what they're doing isn't like really such a big deal. And so I just naturally tend to be, like a little skeptical or whatever. But then I find out like what's really going on. This is 8 years ago. I'm like, ooh, she's really on to something. Like, she's taken this thing kind of like I started. She's been doing it actually longer than me, and she's carrying it much further than I ever did. I've taken what I'm doing, I'll talk about it more this afternoon, but the stuff I'm doing online has taken a dramatic turn in a different direction. What she is doing, like pure evangelism, and one of the, and I'm really proud of her, she's done this kind of almost single-handedly. I mean, it's like her, one other staff member and some volunteers or something like that, okay? And please take this with a grain of salt, because I don't truly mean it this way, but she's kind of the redheaded stepchild of Cru. Okay, like not really, but like, this Campus Crusade, big organization, they got all this stuff, and she's over running the Skunk Works project. Okay? And it's a kind of funny, a lot of these things start as Skunk Works projects. I was talking to a guy this morning, and what came up in our conversation is a lot of times people are good at online marketing in their job because of their little side project or their little side business that they got running at home. And this is why they really know, because they're spending their own money, okay? And when you spend your own money on stuff, it has this way of learning you. It burns the lesson. When you burn through $5,000 of Google AdWords, and there are no refunds, you understand. Like none. Like, you have this way of learning, like really fast. So she's doing this, and she's built this whole thing, and I just want to preface by saying, she's going to show you numbers, and she's going to talk about all kinds of stuff. But my observation, looking at it with my experiences, it could scale a lot bigger than it is. Now, marketers, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and investors and CEOs are obsessed with scalability. There are lots of businesses that are never going to get bigger. Like, there's lots of restaurants or coffee shops that are never going to be bigger than one restaurant or one coffee shop. This is not one of those. This is $1 million a year ministry that could be $100 million a year ministry. It could be a $10 million a year ministry without even changing it very much. Now, to get from 10 to 100, you'd have to add a lot of extra cool stuff. But just so I want you to have that in mind as she comes up and talks. Welcome, Marilyn Adamson. Give this woman a hand. Thank you.
I love working with Perry. And as anybody here who knows him would say the same thing. Also, it did start as a Skunk Works project, but with the backing of the Cru organization and a lot of faith in where this was going to go. And so there was a lot of financial backing and a lot of vision behind it. So I wasn't running totally on my own, but in terms of the work, I kind of was, to build it. Before I go into what I want to present to you, I need to tell you a little bit about myself. I was one of those atheists, but I wasn't mean. But I had become an atheist because when I would ask people, how do you know God exists? And they would just say, well, you just know. Why are you asking? And that's the answer I got every single time. And so I came to the conclusion that it was all made up and people needed God and they created him. And so to me it was a decision that just seemed really clear, so I was an atheist. Now I was open if somebody wanted to try and convince me otherwise, but I was convinced God didn't exist. And then I became friends with a Christian who is really smart. She's a doctor now. And, she was kind. She had a quality of life I admired. But it was her intelligence. I couldn't understand how somebody that smart could believe in God. So I would challenge her on it. And for a year and a half, I was asking her questions. Sometimes I would write them out and give them to her. And she took the time to research answers for me, just because we were good friends. And that may be part of the reason I wasn't mean, is because we were good friends. But eventually, the evidence just became too weighty toward God, and I knew I had to make a decision. So the first decision I made one night was that I was going to decide, one way or another, because I was tired of thinking about it, and I was either going to never think about God again or the possibility, or I was going to do something about it. So I spent 3 to 4 hours reviewing all the evidence, and then my prayer was, okay, you win. And I ask you to come into my life, and you can do with it whatever you want. And I wasn't expecting anything. It's just I thought, now that I'm acknowledging that God exists, it's only proper to offer him my life. That there's God, So that's how my journey started. And then I majored in PR and advertising and came on staff with Campus Crusade for Christ. Back then, that was its name. Now it's Cru. And I had one desire, and that was to use media to reach as many people with the gospel as possible. That's worked out pretty well. I love this verse because this is what we get to do. It says, and I pray that the sharing of your faith may promote the knowledge of all the good that is ours in Christ. What a tremendous message that we have, I love advertising. I could probably sell almost anything, but to be able to tell people all the good that is ours in Christ. So, we have the site, everystudent.com, and just tell you a little bit about it. It is written directly to non-believers. So this is not an apologetic site written to Christians that you then have to figure out, now how would I ever say that to a non-believer? It's already written to them. It's also written in, since you're marketing people, I'll tell you this, it's written in a persuasive style. We're not just informing people. We are seeking to move them toward God. And so it's written actually in attention, interest, decision, action. Every article is written that way. And it's written in somewhat of a conversational copywriting style, although I will never be as good a writer as Perry. I wish I could be. I've had enough training to be, but I'm not there. But many people have written to the site, but it launched in 2000. It is now in 40 languages at the request of countries that, we just built one and we keep building as people keep asking for it. It's also, you'll notice on your table you have a card that says everyperson.com and you have one that says everystudent.com. So Ace mentioned this at the intro that it's the same content, exactly the same content, but older people's faces on everyperson.com and a different name, all right? Over 50,000 people a day come to the site from every country of the world. And over 900 people every day tell us that they've asked Jesus into their lives while on the site. That's, yeah. Only God does stuff like that. As many adults come to everystudent.com as students, and that's because most of the people find it through Google. Patrick was one of the people. He said each morning he was doing just enough drugs to get through the day without killing himself. And then he said, I went to my computer and Googled, starting a new life with God. No idea why that phrase, but it led me to your site. What I read made the most perfect sense. In a life trampled by confusion, it seemed to offer the most ridiculously obvious clarity I have ever imagined. You have offered me a gift which has changed my life. I feel indebted to you for making the information available in a way a complete novice like me could understand. And that last comment is what we hear most often. Somebody can be from a Hindu background, Muslim, any kind of background, and English may even be their second language, and it's clear to them. Every student, go back one, is a safe place for people to explore who God is or what it might be like to know God. So these are our two objectives, and every article, every video on the site has to fulfill one of these two. So if you have a message that you think speaks really well to non-believers that accomplishes this, then I would love to put it on everystudent.com, if it fits. And I wanted to kind of give them a pre-sampling of God. I know that sounds funny, but because I'm talking to marketing people, I can get away with that. I wanted them to imagine and understand what it would be like to know God. The articles and the videos on the site address real questions that people have about life and God. This person said, when I got to your site and saw the list of articles, it freaked me out. Every single question I had, it was all right there. I read through the whole site, which I can't imagine. It's pretty big. And then she said, I read how to become a Christian. So I just prayed, yeah, what it says on the screen, God, I want that, I want to know you. People stay a long time on everystudent.com. This is the average length of time for our top articles. And the shorter articles, are 3-4 minutes. The longer articles are 6 and more. The article, is there a God? Okay, an atheist is not going to want a short article. You don't want just a surface answer to a question like that. And so this is a longer article. I wanted to share what one person wrote on their blog about this article. She said, the funniest thing happened when I read the first paragraph of the article. I wanted to read the next. And when I did, I wanted to read the next and the next. You should all look at this article. And she gives the link. She said, something made me want to believe again. I mean believe. Just reading the intro to the article gave me a newfound respect for Christian thought. I'd been looking for a reason not to be disgusted by Christians I didn't know. Isn't that an interesting comment? I've taken another step closer. I read that article and I saw God coming to me from a place outside myself. That is, revealing himself to me from the actions of others. The faith that I had that he existed was suddenly renewed. I want to show you some of what's on the site, some of the questions that it answers for people, like, what's my purpose in life? This answers the top 6 questions that Muslims have about Jesus. It was written by someone in the Middle East. There's an article on where is God in the midst of tragedy? So in really hard situations, what exactly can you count on God for? And again, this is written to non-believers. An article on pornography, one that compares different religions, Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, New Age, Christianity, and it answers that question, are they the same God? This is a 2-minute video that was produced by Billy Graham. They gave us permission to put on the site that answers the question, come on, given all the evil and suffering in the world, how can you say that God is good? And then the article, Is There a God? Which gives them 6 reasons to believe in God. One on sex and intimacy, how to be loved and love others. How to have peace of mind in this world, with all that's going on. An article written to gays and lesbians about God's love, and thousands have become believers through this article. One that gives the evidence for Jesus being God. And this article was done out of Paul Little's book, No Way You Believe, and InterVarsity Press gave permission for us to put on. This is the article that convinced me of Jesus' deity after I dealt with God's existence. Had to go that direction. And then, does God answer prayer? So that gives you some of the idea of the kinds of things covered on the site. We have an opportunity for somebody to send a question or a comment into the site through email, and they will receive a personal email reply. So nothing is automatically pasted or sent. It's a person answering them. This one, Get the Spiritual Adventure Pack, is a series that I wrote to atheists and skeptics. And it's 7-part, and it logically goes through some of their main objections and then gives them evidence and takes them through. And a lot of people become believers through it. So it's a 7-part email series. And I'll just share one. Carolyn said, although you don't know me, I feel that you've taken my hand and led me on a very special journey these last few weeks. The evidence you give was sufficient to convince this 33-year-old lifelong atheist. Not an easy challenge. And then I wrote a series taking somebody through the Gospel of John. I started writing it for new believers, but as I was doing it, I realized I was writing it in a way that somebody that has no church background at all, no background in Christianity, could understand it. So we put it on everystudent.com. And it's 36 emails long, which is crazy. And people get to the end of it and they write and saying, I'm so sad this has ended. Could I unsubscribe and do it again? Or I've had pastors in Pakistan say I'm leading our whole church through this. Everything, by the way, that we offer, everything's free, and it's not branded with Crew. The reason we chose the name everystudent.com, everyperson.com, is so any ministry, any church could use it. And the same thing with something like this. I mean, there are not free Bible studies on the internet. I mean, that I find, maybe there are, but this is free, and you can offer it free, and you can have this and offer it on your church website or on your ministry website, and I can tell you how to do that. Either you send them to everystudent.com and they sign up for it, or if you want to pay for people's emails, it's cheap, but if you want to have that, there's a way to do that. On everystudent.com, I want you to see how people are telling us that they've asked Jesus into their life. We have, the gospel is included in about 20% of the site. A lot of the other parts of the site are simply helping them know who God is or what it might be like to know God. But the gospel is in about 20%, and those are going to be longer articles. And typically, like this one that I was checking, typically they're 2,400 to 2,800 words. Not as long as what Perry writes, but long. And when they get to the bottom, there's 3 links that just sit there. And we don't say, please pick one, or they just sit there. And so the first one says, I just asked Jesus into my life. Some helpful information follows. The second one says, I may want to ask Jesus into my life. Please explain this more fully. And so we take them to a whole different presentation of the gospel that's on the site, whole different way to explain it. And the third one is, I have a question or comment. So when I say that 900, 1,000 people a day are telling us they've asked Jesus into their life, they've clicked that first link. And that's the best way we know to measure. When they click that first link, used to be we would just send them to a growth site, but then I met Perry, and I said, I don't know how to get in touch with people to become believers from everystudent.com. He said, oh, here's what you do. Yeah, you need an autoresponder email series. So I went, okay. And so he trained me on how to set that up. And so when they click that first link, they're taken to a page that's hidden on everystudent.com. And it invites them to sign up for the Spiritual Starter Kit. And this is 7 email series. And it's also offered on our growth site. 45% of new believers start growing right away, which is higher than you'll find in the mission field generally. 35% sign up for the Spiritual Starter Kit right away, and then another 10% go from everystudent.com to Starting with God, because we tell them on that hidden page, I think this is going to be most helpful for you to sign up for this, but if you don't want to, that's fine. Here's a growth site you can go to. So I love that minutes after somebody receives Christ, they can begin growing. Because what happens a lot of times, if days go by before they really understand, there can be, what was that? That was probably an emotional experience, and they forget about it and go back to their normal life. And so to be able to help them understand what it means to have a relationship with God is, I just love that they can get that immediately. So just to give you a flavor of what these emails are like, and I wrote these, so I know what they say. The first one, congratulates them on becoming a believer, and then I share about how what it was like when I asked Jesus into my life. And then I said, the first thing I noticed about God is that he's invisible, which sounds funny, but it was a problem. Because when you ask Jesus into your life, how do you know that Jesus came into your life? You can't see him. Was it based on your sincerity or your prayers, what you said or how you feel? And I say, no, it's none of that. It's because he offered you a relationship with him and you responded. But I want you to be sure that Jesus came into your life. So click this link and it will help you understand if Jesus, if you really have started a relationship with God. And so then it takes them to this article, Is God in My Life Now? And this is on our growth site. And it reviews the gospel again in a different way. And then it goes through all the scripture. And you're a child of God now. You're forgiven. You have eternal life. So Jade is someone that went through it. And she said, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being a part of my new journey. I love how it's called the Spiritual Starter Kit. I always saw myself as more of a spiritual person. Never thought I'd come to know God like I have. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Jose from Australia said, until you came along, I was going to do something I would have regretted for the rest of my life. Thank you. It is amazing the way I see things now as opposed to the way I did a few weeks ago. If you knew me personally, you would be amazed at the changes in me. Thank you very much. And then I wanted to add one more because I think this is kind of typical. Morgan says, as a teenager, I feel like there's all this focus on getting saved and following the thousands of rules, but I was never given any guidance after accepting Christ. For months, and she said a lot more, for months I just went through the motions. One night, after once again hopelessly trying to understand, I came across this. Thank you. I would never be where I am in my relationship today if God hadn't led me to this. So we have the spiritual star kit. Then at the end of that, they get one more email that says, you know, the spiritual life, the Christian life can be extremely rewarding or extremely frustrating. And I talk about how it's easy. Well, I talk about how I started seeing things in the Bible that were defined as sins that I never thought were sins, and commands to do things. And, you know, I thought it was way easier to be an atheist. You know, this is hard. And so I started feeling a lot of pressure. And so I tell them, that's not how God wants you to live in a relationship with Him. So it invites them to a series called Skip the Stress that goes through an explanation of the spiritual life, what it means to trust God, walk by faith, live under God's grace. And it's a tremendous series, partly because of the articles that are linked from it. And then again, the Gospel of John is offered to them. And then I wanted to help them reach others. So this one guy wrote, I love this, he said, how do I explain Jesus without sounding like a psycho? And so I wrote this series called How to Talk About God. And it gives, I think it's 15 emails or something. It gives different ways to talk to people about God, ways to use the internet. You know, you are invited to sign up for any of these. Now I'm going to tell you how you can use this in your personal life, in your ministry, in your business, to have an impact in so many people's lives. A couple weeks ago, I was in Austin and speaking to about 50 believers. And a gentleman said, I love Jesus, but every time I try to talk to someone about him, I feel like I'm stumbling through some sort of sales pitch, trying to convince someone of something. And another guy in the room said, man, can I relate? And hence why I almost never broached the topic. Then another gentleman said, I wrote in my journal to Jesus 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry that I hate evangelism so much. Can you please fix this? And all three of these gentlemen and others said that what I shared with them, what I'm about to share with you, totally changed their view of evangelism and freed them to talk to people about God, which is really fun. So this is how we do life now, right? This is how everybody does life now. Amazon, this is what their sales have done starting in, I think it's 2004 on this graph. This is what Barnes & Noble sales have done. Okay, why? Because it's so much easier to go online, shop in 5 minutes, you're done, and it's at your door the next day. People don't have time to get in their car, drive to a store, walk through the aisles of books trying to find what they want, and then drive back home. You know, there's just no need for that. And so that's why Barnes & Noble sales are dragging. How many of you took an Uber coming here? Oh, wow, you guys are up on it. Good. I've done it once. Uber's the same thing. It is, I want a ride. I want it right now. You come to me. All right, just like Amazon. It's like, you come to me. So if people are asking questions like this, is God real? Is Jesus God? Will God help me with this addiction? If they're not already connected to a church, they are not likely to drive to a church, find a pastor, and ask these questions. You know who they're going to ask? Google. Why? Because it's private, it's fast, it's at their moment of need, and there's no effort. Just like Amazon and Uber, all right? So we need to come into people's lifestyle now and adjust our ministry accordingly. Everystudent.com, one of the reasons it has taken off is for the exact same reasons. It's private, it's fast, it's at their moment of need, and there's no effort. When they have questions about God, many don't want a debate or an intimate conversation about it. Many want to explore their spiritual questions on their own. Partly, many are not even sure what they believe, and they're kind of embarrassed that they don't know more. Online is comfortable, it's safe, they are in control. No one's challenging them. Defenses can come down, and they can be honest. So, for example, I don't picture somebody saying this to somebody that they've just met, but online they will. If your God exists, I wonder if he would care about me. I've done some pretty stupid stuff in my life. My thoughts are that he would look my way in disdain and complete and utter disappointment. We need to adjust to offer our message in a way that people want to receive it. That's a basic marketing principle. And Paul did it. He said, to the Jews, I became as a Jew in order to win Jews. To those under the law, I became as one under the law. To those outside the law, I became as one outside the law. To the weak, I became weak. I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. If we want a strong ministry in today's culture, we need to serve people on their terms. So let's say you lead someone to Christ, and then you say to them, let's get together in a few days because I have some really important information to share with you. They're thinking, drive to meet you in order to get some information? Can't you just text me a link? Does this mean we can't talk to people anymore? It's just the opposite. This opens up so many more conversations, and I'm going to give you some examples. But it leads to conversations about God where both you and the other person are comfortable. One thing I need to mention is non-believers are not going to be open with you about what they're thinking. I'm going to use myself as an example. This is my closest friend who I'm asking all these questions of, right? I found out years later she never thought I would ever believe in God. She just went and did the research and answered my questions simply because she loved me as my friend. But I never let on that I was open. I never let on that I really was hoping God existed. You know, and here, this is my closest friend, and she didn't know it. She couldn't even read that because I didn't want her to know that. You know, I was defending my beliefs. I would leave a conversation with her, a debate. I'd gotten into philosophy and I liked a good argument. So, but I was nice. But when we would be done talking, I would leave and I would think, she believes everything she just said. And I don't know that I believed anything I just said. I just wanted to win the argument. And isn't that interesting? Here's another example. I saw this guy who pulled up in his car outside of a Walmart, and he had this bumper sticker on his car, Born Again Pagan. So I was curious. So I stopped him and said, I saw your bumper sticker. And he said, oh yeah, greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And I said, no, I said, I don't know a lot about paganism, but you're talking about worshiping the god of the sun and wind and water. Yeah. My brother got me into it. It's greatest things, changed my life. And I said, well, you know, I used to be deeply into existential philosophy and such. And when I found out that I could know God by asking Jesus into my life, my search ended. And he looked at me and he said, "That's me, I'm searching." Okay, who would have thought, right? Do you want to know what non-believers really want to know? On a daily basis, what does your faith do for you? Why are you glad you believe in God? God is personal, and I think every one of us has a unique personal relationship with God. Some people, let me ask this, you need to think, I think, to be a good evangelist, to be available to share with people, I think it's helpful to know what you personally know to be true of God. Like, there are some Christians that would say, I know when I talk to God, he hears me because he answers prayers all the time. Somebody else may say, when I am lost, I'm not sure what decision to make, God gives me direction. Someone else may say, when I'm confused and I have questions, God speaks to me through the Bible. And it goes on and on. There could be all sorts of things that are true in your life. For me, God has always been amazingly clear in guiding me, in telling me what to do next. I mean, if non-believers had happen in their life what God's done in my life, they would know what to do. I mean, they would do it because it was so obvious. So when you, like, I would encourage you sometime soon in the next few days, think through times in your life when you knew God was real, like you really, really knew it. And think about what was happening and what you learned about God in that. And this becomes your life message. And let me show you how it works in conversation then. Once you have this, like if you could have 3 things that you know are true about God, you can draw on them when you are talking to people. So, for example, I was on a flight, and this woman sitting next to me had this huge book on horoscopes. And it was an international flight. I thought, who packs a book that big on an international flight? But she's reading it, and I had just finished telling God I was tired, and if it was okay with him, I really would rather not talk to anybody, But if you want it, okay, So she takes her book, and she puts it in my lap. Like, okay. She said, "Which one are you?" And I was raised to know this. So I said, "Well, I'm Cancer." And she said, "Okay." And she flips to that page. And now she is sharing with me this book. And we're going through it. And I'm going, "Well, yeah, that's true. And that. And not that so much. No, not this at all." And we went through the entire page. And then I looked at her and I said, "Look, here's the thing. When it comes to my life and decisions I need to make, I know that God can guide my life and direct me, and he's 100% reliable. And you could know God like that. You could have a relationship with God where you would see him caring about your life and guiding you. And I don't know if anybody's ever shared with you how you could know God like that. So could I give you a card to a website, and you could check it out. Here's another example. There was a guy at my house fixing my computer, and as he was leaving, I didn't want to take a lot of his time. He was working, but as he's leaving, I said, "I know that's a St. Christopher medal you're wearing, right?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, I have to. I travel all the time." I said, I get that. I said, "But could I recommend that you go higher, that you go over the head of St. Christopher all the way up to God? Because God cares about you, and he loves you, and he wants to take care of your life. And maybe nobody's ever shared with you how you could know God like that. All right? Here's another. I was on a plane. I do travel a lot. And this guy asked what I do, and I always tell people, not always, but I said, I'm with a website that seeks to answer people's questions about life and God. Like, it takes on the really hard questions about life, and it gives evidence for God's existence, for example. And he went, oh, I have a friend for 2 years has been trying to get me saved. And I said, okay, so what is your hesitation? And we talked for 2 hours. And we talked about God for 2 hours. It was so fun. And I knew that every question he was asking was really answered well on everystudent.com. And that those articles could say it better than I could say to him in a few minutes. Plus, there wouldn't be pushback so much when he's on the site. Because, as I said, defenses come down and you can really listen and be honest. So we get off the plane. I said, Bob, you cannot become a Christian just because your friend wants you to. You need to do your research. And here's a site where you can do that. And it's like talking to someone who's homeless and you just left the grocery store and your trunk's full of groceries. It's exactly what it feels like. I'm going to give you one more. I was at a hotel and they had a fire drill. So now I'm standing outside the front door, and this woman's next to me, and she said, are you with our convention? I said, no, I'm with a website that seeks to answer people's questions about life and God. And by the way, you can do this too. You could say, I'm in such and such business, but I'm also connected to a website that seeks to answer people's questions about life and God. All right, and then you give them everyperson.com or everystudent.com, all right? So you all have permission to do that, all right? You're all connected. So I told her that, and, and I said it answers questions about God's existence. And she looked at me and she said, I'm an atheist, but I'm searching. I said, you will love this site. And I'd encourage you to sign up for this email series. I wrote it on the back, the Spiritual Adventure Pack. And it will give you reasons to believe in God and how you can begin that relationship with him. And she said, thank you so much. And everybody says that to me at the end. Thank you so much. Now, how often do you share the gospel where they go, thank you so much? And that's the value of this, is that you can talk to somebody and care about them and love them and focus on them, knowing you can really, really help them. And they sense that you're helping them because you're not trying to control them. You're actually serving them and giving them a way for them to know God. And it doesn't mean that, there the site's done it and that's the end of it. If you know the person, you ask them about it a few days later. Hey, did you go to the site? Can we talk about it? What'd you think? If you never go see them again, likely, then you still may have helped somebody in changing their life for eternity just by a 30-second or 1-minute conversation. In our organization, we train people to be able to say their testimony of how they came to Christ in 3 minutes. I find that that's a little long in personal conversations, with somebody that you just meet. So, like I was on a flight and this guy, asked what I did and all that. And he said, I'm an atheist. He said, how did you get into that? And I said, well, I had questions about God's existence, and a friend of mine took time to research answers for me for 1.5 years, and the evidence was so overwhelming that I asked God to come into my life. He's changed my life. That's pretty quick. And that works. So I think it's good to have a 20-second statement like that you could say. So if you've never tried that, figure out how to do a 20-second. And then the 3 things you know to be true about God. And then again, this is what I say, at the end often. I'm wondering if anyone's ever shared with you how you could know God like that. may I give you a website that will show you how to begin a relationship with God, or that will answer your questions, or whatever the situation may be. And then you can just hand them a card, or you can text it to them. So on this text, I didn't make this large enough, but it says, hey, I came across an article that I think you would like, and you give the link. I mean, that's so easy, right? Or you could just send them to the website as a whole. You know, here's a great website I found, think you'd be interested in it, give them the URL. We also have the English version in an app. So in iOS or Android, just download it. It's free. It's only 6 megs, so it's tiny. And it's just called Every Student. And here's where it comes in handy. As I've been traveling, like I was on a plane, and this woman next to me was from Germany, and she didn't speak English much. But I could tell she could read it because she's flipping through the flight magazine, which also told me she was really bored. And she had nothing to do, right? Nothing to read. So I pulled out my phone. We hadn't left the gate yet. And I said, I have an app. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it, you know. And then another time I was on a flight, and these 2 women next to me, they were on their way to London. And they were bored too. They're flipping through the flight magazine. That's a sure sign. Just look for the flight magazine. And I said, hey, I waited till we were just about landed. It was in Houston or somewhere. And I said, I have something that will make your next flight way more interesting. So when you get into the terminal, download the app, Every Student, and I gave them a card. I said, this will help you remember the name. And it goes through really tricky questions about life and relationships and things about God. And they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. And on the flight here, I did the same thing with the guy sitting next to me. He downloaded it before we parked, you know. So it's pretty fun. On the app, you know, we have the best articles from everystudent.com. And then we also have startingwithgod.com, which is the growth site, is the last one on the page. And this is kind of fun. I took all the email series and put them in the app as pages, hidden pages. And so nobody has to give their email address to get it. In the app, they just press on a check mark, and then they get each of the emails, each of the messages in a timed way, but they come up as an app notification. So the ones that are formerly in email series will have a little star next to them. So this means it's an app that you can use with non-believers or with believers. Let me tell you how you can use this in social media. A friend of mine shared this illustration with me. You will never forget it. He said, it's like giving people donuts. Ephesians 2 says, as for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins in which you used to live when you followed the ways of the world. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ. So we are talking with people who are spiritually dead, and only God can make them come alive. So he said it's like walking into a morgue with Dunkin' Donuts. And you're going to take a donut, and you're going to put it by the head of every corpse. He said only God can make them come alive. So what we're doing in social media is we're just putting it out there so God can make them come alive. In this case, and I asked a group of students this is so funny. I said, so are you going to look for how many likes and shares you get? They went, well, yeah. I said, no, because that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it just to make it available to non-believers, and they're probably not going to come back and click like, at the end of it, or, This is just a way to throw it out there and let God use it. So you can share articles in Facebook or Twitter. We have every article coded so that a photo comes up with it, the headline and the text is all right there. So you don't even have to say anything with it if you don't want to. Here's another one on Beyond Blind Faith. Underneath it says, who is Jesus? Is Jesus God? See what Jesus said about himself, his equality with God, and what exactly Jesus did to prove it. When we had the terrorist attack in Orlando, that's where I live, I put up this post and I said some things at the top and then gave them the article, Where's God in Tragedy? We have a resource site called everystudent.info. All right, so .info. And on it, I just put up 50 different statements and a link. They're all under 140 characters. Does that matter anymore in Twitter? It does. It still does. Okay. And so you can go to this page. So in our search box, and by the way, on all three of our sites, on everystudent.com, Starting with God, and everystudent.info, we have a great search box. So you could just go in there and type in Twitter, this page will come up for you. So really, it's pray, copy, paste. All right? So here's a summary. How to help them find God, hand them a card, text a link to them, share it in your social media, or tell somebody to download the app. Okay? There's more. Are you with me? What about when people become Christians? Okay, I already told you about the spiritual starter kit. So you can just send somebody to startingwithgod.com, and on that home page, it's inviting them to sign up for the spiritual starter kit. So you only need to say, go to startingwithgod.com. I was a friend of mine in Chicago asked if we could get together and talk about God. So we went to Starbucks, one of the northwest suburbs, and as we're talking, I'm realizing she has not asked Jesus into her life yet. So I shared the gospel with her, that he wants to have a relationship with you. When he died on the cross, it was not just symbolic. It wasn't just a nice gesture. He actually accomplished something through that. Everything that's separating you from God right now is sin. And Jesus took that on himself. He knows, being God, he knows every person who's ever existed, ever will exist, and what sin they would commit in their life. And he took that on himself and paid for it so we would not remain eternally separated from God. That by him paying for that, he offers, here, if you'd like to have a relationship with me, you can. I have taken away that barrier of sin. If you will accept that gift from me, you can have a relationship with me. And so, I just shared that with her. So I said, if you want to ask him into your life, I'll let you do that now, and I'll read the paper, and you let me know when you're done. So I just, I wanted to give her some privacy in Starbucks, So when she's done, she said, okay. I said, all right, now here's what I want you to do. Go to startingwithgod.com and sign up for the spiritual starter kit. And I wrote that out. And then I asked her, do you know anybody who you think might be a Christian? And she said, oh, yeah. I've got a friend, talks about God all the time. She goes to the Evangelical Free Church down here. And I went, good. I said, I want you to meet with your friend, see if she's free for lunch tomorrow. Tell her you've become a Christian. Ask her to sign up for the spiritual starter kit, and you two go through it together. And I got on a plane and went back to Orlando. And I got a text from her that night. Thank you so much for talking to me. And I texted back, I've been smiling all day. And she texted back, funny, I've been smiling all day too. And they went through it together, and she said it just made things so clear in understanding what it meant to have a relationship with God. Okay, I'm almost done. One more illustration. This woman and I are both running from one flight to another, and that one was also late, which gave us time to talk at the gate. And she asked what I did, and so I told her, and she said, "Wait a minute." And she reached in her briefcase and pulled out this huge, heavy Bible. And again, we're on an international trip. And she said, "I'm a recovering alcoholic. I just became a Christian. I have no idea what to do with this." All right? So how fun is it? And I firmly believe, I see it all the time, when you know how to help somebody like this, God just brings people to you. He just does. He just does. This person said, "I have enjoyed receiving each and every email from you. I eagerly await anything further you send my way. I know these steps are like that of a baby that I'm taking now. But God is real. I know it with all my heart, and He is directing my life now, and I am so thankful." I have thousands like this. Okay, one more use. Let's say your church or your organization has an evangelistic event. When people leave the auditorium, they're leaving with questions in their mind. There's going to be something said that may prompt a question they've always had about God that wasn't answered in that event, right? There's some that they want to believe in God, they want a relationship with Him, but they're not sure. They've got some questions about, whatever it may be. And so don't let them leave and there's the end of your event. You've put a lot of work into having an evangelistic event. So at the exit door, I recommend this card, which is free. You can download it, get it printed. To explore questions about life and God on your own, please see everystudent.com. We could do one that says everyperson.com. If you began a relationship with God, please visit Starting with God and sign up for the free email series, The Spiritual Starter Kit. Now, isn't that a great thing to hand out at the exit door? And even to announce it at the end of the event. You're going to be given a card. If you have questions about God, it's a website where you can explore those. If you ask Jesus into your life, we really encourage you to sign up for this, and it's just a great way to help them grow. There's more ideas on our resource site, and there's only 3 tabs, so the middle one, Make Jesus Findable, will give you more ideas. So in summary, end every conversation with either everystudent.com or everyperson.com. Just give them a card. Share it in your social media. Give every new believer an opportunity to grow at startingwithgod.com. And there are the 3 websites.
Excellent, thank you. And I want to give some accolades to some people. Sam Hayashida and the copywriters, please stand up. No, you did exactly what I wanted you to do. You're good. So these guys helped do a lot of the writing to get you to the event. The sales letter that a lot of you saw. Sam turned phone conversations into a sales letter, which I then went back and forth, and then a lot of the emails he helped with that. And it's not easy to write in Perry's voice, so it's kind of a joint effort. So give these guys a hand. I've got people who came to pray for the event, and you can raise your hands if you feel so inclined. There's Lorena who's walking here. She's been really helpful. Tiffany. So thank you all. Excellent. Somebody asked me, does the marketing DNA change with time? Answer, not very much. And I just want to encourage you, you should really read yours very carefully. Now, first of all, if you really don't think it's accurate, then go ahead and ignore it. But probably it is pretty accurate. And if it's saying that you're doing the wrong thing in your job or the wrong thing in your ministry, change it. Life is too short to do stuff that you're not gifted to do, because there's something else that's going to give you more joy. Okay, I want to talk about kind of go deep on marketing stuff here. All right, so how are we going to engage human beings online? Well, there are a lot of ways, and again, we keep coming back to this. I have a magic gumball machine. Every time you put $3.25 in, a brand new Christian comes out, or every time you put X number of dollars in, some kind of spiritual conversation starts. So how many coins do you want to put on the gumball machine? And I think every Christian should think that way about how you invest your money. In fact, it's really astonishing to me how few churches, ministries, mission agencies, or what have you, actually measure their efforts in these terms. Very rarely will you have a church meeting where somebody goes, okay, so our annual budget divided by the number of baptisms was $48,000. Let's see if we can get it down to 30 next year. And by the way, whatever the number is what it is, okay? Like, pretending, what are you pretending not to know? I mean, that's a good question to ask yourself in your life. What am I pretending not to know right now? In Facebook and Google AdWords, both of those platforms, they have a metric called conversions. Now, where do you suppose that word originally came from? Either of those platforms, you put a little pixel on a thank you page and it says the person made it past the email form, or the person made it past the shopping cart, or the person did whatever you're trying to do. In fact, in all those platforms, there's now like 20 different things, right? It could be an app download, it could be a view of a web page, it could be like all this different kind of stuff. And some people measure sales leads. Some people measure phone calls. Some people measure purchase orders. Some people measure e-commerce stuff. Some people build gigantic Google Analytics campaigns with API calls and all kinds of stuff just to track all this stuff to the nth degree, just to sell vitamin E. Okay? And this is normal. If you're in the deep end of e-commerce, if you're in the deep end of online marketing, this is normal. Okay? Why aren't churches and ministries doing this? I kind of hate to say this, and my friend who told me this won't say it in public, but I've got a mentor and a friend that I really respect, and he said to me, he goes, Perry, the church in the United States is finished. It has no credibility anymore. And I'm like, yeah. Now, I'm not saying it has to be that way. I'm not saying it's going to be that way, but for the most part, that's the case. If you're not results driven, then you got yourself a little country club. And, it's a great country club, and the people bring you the casserole when somebody's sick, and that's great, okay? And it's great. But, okay, are you bringing people in? Now, it's hard to get into that zone. It requires a lot of willpower and a lot of mojo. But anybody that's been in a growing church can tell you, when you get in that zone, there is nothing like it. Isn't that right, Gary Poole? It is really amazing. And so, what are you going to be results-oriented with? Well, I'm just going to show you some examples of landing pages. Now, all of these that I'm going to show you, for the most part, the goal is to collect an email address. Now, there are lots of other things that you could try to do, but I will tell you, it still continues to be the case that the most valuable form of connection on the internet is an email address. Now, a cell phone number so you can send them a text message is more valuable than that. However, and it can be used. However, we all know there's kind of a limited, there's only so far you can go with that. You pretty much have to have a personal, direct relationship. I don't let hardly anybody send me text blasts, okay? But as far as mass marketing, email is at the top of the heap. An email address is worth anywhere from 5 to 50 times as much money as a Facebook fan or a Twitter follower. And if you have a Facebook fan, you have to pay Facebook money to be guaranteed to reach them. If you think your Facebook fans are seeing your messages for free, you are 90% wrong, okay? So, how do you collect email addresses? Well, here's a few examples. This is what the 7 Lies of Organized Religion looks like now. 7 Great Lies of Organized Religion, a closer look. Over the centuries, billions of people have fallen prey to religion run amok. How many Jews and gypsies suffered in Nazi concentration camps while churches in Germany turned their heads? How many people were murdered in the Crusades during the Middle Ages in the name of God? Some religious leaders seem to tell us we're not smart enough or good enough to discover God on our own. Who says? If God is good and perfect, why is there so much evil suffering in the world? How can anyone rely on the Bible for answers if it's just a loose translation of ancient myths anyway? How can we trust a religion that has advocated slavery and the subjugation of women throughout history? And then to sign up. Now, you know what's interesting? That last bullet has gone viral in atheist tweets. It keeps coming up over and over again. It kind of reemerges and then it disappears. Now, they're not using it the way I am, except sort of I am. Do you realize how deliberately ambiguous I'm being? Now, when you sign up, the ambiguity does not end, because the whole entire email series is about contrasting the difference between religion and relationship. Religion is abusive. It is. In fact, anybody who does counseling, inner healing, or something like that, they'll spend as much time working on that as they will on incest. Right, Tommy? He does it for a living. And so you're going for the jugular. Like, we're not just like saying nice mamby-pamby stuff. We're going for the bleeding neck. This is Marilyn's Starting with God page. Congratulations on your decision to ask Jesus Christ in your life. What now? And then you sign up for the spiritual starter kit at the end. And you're making a promise. Here's what you're going to get. This is the Cosmic Fingerprints website. Where did the universe come from? Was it started by God? Or might science perhaps provide us with a more reasonable, natural explanation? I am synchronizing with the cynical person. Okay? This is the conversation inside their head. And that's the rule. Enter the conversation inside their head. If they're not thinking it now, they were thinking it yesterday, or they thinking it last week. But and then bullets. We're teasing them. Day one, the mistake Einstein later called the biggest blunder of my career and a dangerous assumption that nearly blinded him to the greatest discovery of the 20th century. Now, what these landing pages will usually accomplish is they will get 10, maybe let's say 8 to 15% of the people that visit to sign up. Okay, that's very typical, especially if they came from Google. On Facebook, usually it'll be a little lower, and I'll talk about that later. But what that means is if it costs you 10 cents to get somebody there, and 10% of the people signed up, then that means it's $1 a person. Okay? And you can do it all day long. And how many times do you want to do it? And where do you want to take them? This is from my Evolution 2.0. Could the war between Darwin and design be over, or is it just beginning? And they can sign up and they can get 3 free chapters of Evolution 2.0, and then they get a series of emails that kicks in after that. Takes them on a little adventure. This is, I mentioned this earlier, this is on my business website, and I send this to business people. Dysfunctions, addictions, and the financial burning bus. Dear Planet Perry member, I've seen people take $1,000 of knowledge and turn it into a fortune. I've watched others take $100,000 of knowledge and drive themselves into the ground. I've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs. I've witnessed every kind of drama, success, or failure story you can imagine. Some of my students have gone from zero to net worths of tens of millions of dollars under my watch. Others incinerated fortunes with tragic stupidity spasms. Am I going for the jugular? Okay, people read this and they're like, that's me. How many of you entrepreneurs have incinerated a fortune with a stupidity spasm? Raise your hand. See, they're not even ashamed of it. See, it's really okay. Oh yeah, like I burned through $6 million of venture capital and I got nothing. All right. And now what's interesting is this is a very spiritual thing that I'm talking about here. And I hardly ever get any complaints about it. And I cut a vein and bleed. I talk about some of my long dark nights of the soul. I talk about midlife crisis. I talk about really, really, really stupid stuff that I've done, shooting myself in the foot, and then, you know, racking the shotgun again and shooting myself in the ankle just to make sure, like, that the foot is completely gone. Here's another one. Religion, spirituality, and insider's view of Planet Perry. I grew up a PK pastor's kid. Insiders know that pastor's kids are usually rowdy, rebellious, and rambunctious. I was no exception. And this page actually goes on quite a ways. And there's several points along the page where we got a little box and you can sign up for a spirituality course like, hey, let's talk about this stuff. Any of you could do this. Now again, you should look at your marketing DNA. If you're not a writer, don't try to write a bunch of emails. If you're not a video person, don't try to shoot a bunch of videos, right? You know, maybe you're like a podcast kind of person. Maybe it's MP3s, whatever, okay? Maybe you got a friend and they're really good at that. You just want to make it happen and maybe you finance it or whatever. But I think anybody with any kind of presence on the web, any kind of business can do something like this. And I challenge literally every single one of you who have a business website or any kind of website that a lot of people are coming to do this. Or if you have an email list, or if you have a fan base. Lots of people have fan bases. And so here's the traditional sales funnel. Google ad, and then squeeze page is what we call them in marketing lingo. We're trying to squeeze an email address out of them. Followed by benevolent Chinese water torture. Now that's my word for emails that never stop. Drip, 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 drip. And in my career, I've put about 750,000 people on a whole bunch of different email lists. And then, you know, they're in one, and then they get invited onto another one, and then there's another one, and there's another one, and I call it building the maze. Okay? Now, mine, you know, mostly they're stories written in email. Yours could be link to YouTube video, link to YouTube video, link to podcast, link to MP3, link to download app, link to live TV show, sign up for webinar, sign up for live cast, live stream. It could be sign up to get a free telephone consultation. People do this all the time online. It could be Skype. It could be once a week for 2 hours, I'll Skype with anybody that wants to talk about spiritual stuff. 4 to 6 Thursday nights. Sign up here. 20-minute sessions, I got 6 of them. When they're gone, they're gone. People will sign up. You can do one of those little, my calendar widget thingies on a website where they can pick the slots where you're available and they sign up and there you go. And see, evangelism, if that isn't who would want to do that? That's like knocking on doors and accosting people. It used to be, I went to the University of Nebraska and there was a guy that would show up about every 6 months with a cross and he would start yelling at people. This is what people think evangelism. No, they come to you. They come to you. In fact, you can run them through multiple sortation filters, just like a coal mine or something, and just get the really good ones, and then I'll talk to them. But they come to you, and they kind of work their way through the system. By the time they've been on 6 of your autoresponders, they probably like you. And they feel like they know you. And then the close, whatever that is, which it could be, Marilyn just I prayed to receive Jesus, maybe it could be they get on your webinar, or they listen to your interview, or they come to your thing, or they call you on the phone. Now, this is a completely commercial, non-religious, non-ministry project here. A lot of my customers have seen this. This was selling an ebook that I believe we sold for 99 bucks. And there was 2 paths that we tested. One path was we buy the traffic, they land on the page, and we're trying to squeeze 99 bucks out of them. The other path was we're going to give you some free chapters, we're going to give you an email course, we're going to teach you little bits and pieces about this. Just sign up here, and we didn't try to sell anything at all, okay? And so path A, sell it directly. Path B, run them through an email sequence. What you're seeing here, the blue is the cumulative dollars on a daily basis that we had collected per visitor over time on the email sequence. The red is the direct, try to get you to buy this thing right here, right now. Well, it's no surprise the first day asking for the money works better, gets you more money than not asking for the money. Now, every email would have a link to go and buy the thing at the end. Okay? Now, what you see here is that the dollars per visitor, it actually gets a little lucky the first few days, and it settles down. And when you run it out over time, the email sequence sells twice as much stuff as the direct path. And we're nurturing. Now, this is only a week. I have people on my email list that got on this 10 years ago. So the number can only go up. But at the end of 1 week, 92 cents per visitor revenue from the email sequence, 48 cents per visitor revenue from the direct sale. So we're just nurturing, and this is what I call Chinese water torture. And you can shape people's opinions, beliefs, and thinking about things very significantly with an email that shows up every week, or twice a week, or once every 2 weeks, or once every day, or twice a day, or however long it is. If they know you, like you, trust you, it's consistently interesting, it's consistently provocative, then you can take them where they want to go, and they like you, and they like getting your emails, and when they show up, they see them, and they don't become invisible. How many of you have been on one of my email lists for more than 10 years? Raise your hand. Do you think it made it a lot easier to get these people into this room? Now, how many of you who raised your hand never met me before today? Quite a few. You can have a relationship with people all over and they don't even know you, but they know you. It's kind of weird. But it's cool. It's very cool. Now, you as a Christian, like, it's your job to be influential. This is what being salt and light means. If you have any hang-ups about being influential, okay, go read the salt and light stuff and go, that's influence. In fact, you should be the most influential person you know how to be. You should occupy, all other things being equal, you should occupy the highest level of responsibility, success, visibility, responsibility that you can in the marketplace, in your neighborhood, or wherever you are. You should not be playing a small game. You should not be playing a small game. If your church encourages you to play a small game, you need to go somewhere else. And this is one of the reasons that, like, the church isn't in really great shape. It's because Christians have all this inner conflict about being big and being powerful. And we're afraid of powerful people. We all need to be powerful people, and we need to learn through the Spirit of Christ to manage power. That's called meekness. Meekness is when David can kill Saul in cold blood with his sword because he's sleeping in a cave and he cuts the corner of his robe off instead. That's what powerful people led by the Spirit do. Hard to be a man with a gun in your hand? Yeah, hard to be a man when there's a sword in your hand and there's a sleeping king next to you. And God tells you what to do. Are you glad David was a powerful man? Are you glad he helped us write the Psalms? Are you glad he set a legacy? Are you glad that he was a progenitor of a kingdom that Christ sits on now? So this is what amaze looks like. So G is for gateway. Gateway is invitation to, in one of these sign-up pages. It could be for anything. You saw multiple examples of this. So a gateway is a sign-up to get on an email sequence. Now, what I didn't show you here is that you could have any number of interesting things. I don't know. Okay, right here after the gateway. See, it doesn't just have to be an email series. They could get something instantly. They could get an ebook. They could get a video. They could get a phone call. They could get a webinar. They could get something sent to them in the mail. They could get a book. Could be anything. Whatever gets them in, all right? But the maze, C stands for content. Now, what I'm showing you, I didn't change it at all from the commercial side. So this is just what I teach business owners. Content, content, content for pitch. Pitch means, hey, why don't you buy what I got? In Marilyn's world, it's, hey, why don't you ask God to reveal himself to you right now? Why don't you just pray this little prayer? The same, I've got one of these that's on day 7 of 7 Great Lies of Organized Religion. How about you say, hey, and I tell this thief on the cross story. He goes, Lord, remember me when you come in your kingdom. So, you know, you could say that to God right now. Lord, remember me when you come in your kingdom. That's my pitch. It's on day 7. Okay, then content, then another gateway, then some more content, then some more content, then another gateway. So they branch off. Okay, so you got your spiritual starter kit. How about a study of the book of John? And then they do that. How about a study of the book of Acts? Acts is like a really cool book. Or how about a, my wife and I are in this horrible spot. We haven't actually slept together in 3 months, and I know if I even touch her, there will be a 440 volt electricity will jump out at me. So I'm in serious bad pain. If you wrote that on a landing page and you had an email series that says how to deal with it, people would sign up, I promise you. No, I do not want a new version of DivX. Sorry, guys. All right. So you can build as many of these as you want. Now, the way I showed you here, day 0, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 6, 10, 15, 20, 30. You can do these a lot of different ways, but the point is they start out frequent and then they spread out. Why? Because people's interest in a particular topic usually tends to decline a little bit over time. Now, this can go as long as you want. I've got autoresponders that run 2, 3, 4 years. And then you layer several of these things together, and they're on 6 or 8 of these sequences, and each one of them sending something every month. So actually, they're getting stuff like 1 or 2 or 3 times a week. Drip, drip, drip. That's how we got the Grand Canyon. Drip, 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 drip. I like dripping. I love it. I'm not a closer. I'm not a hostage negotiator. I'm not the guy that's going to like talk you into doing this right now. How many of you got dripped like 15 times just to come here? And I had loved it. It's like seduction. It's fun. I mean, I really do. I see them. Isn't it fun? It's fun. Okay, this looks a lot more complicated than it is. So let me explain what this is, and then we'll go to lunch. There are a lot of media that you can reach people through. This is a roughly comprehensive list of all the media that are commonly in use right now. So let me talk you through this. So earlier I showed you this slide, and everything was linear. You got a visitor, you offered them something, do you want this or not? 10% of them take it. Then they get their benevolent Chinese water torture, and then we take them wherever we want to take them. And it's like A, B, C, D, very linear. Now this is sort of 2010, frankly. It still works. Don't make any mistake about it. But it doesn't really account for social media, and it doesn't really speak to all the other things that you can do. This does. Now, this is, so first of all, that spiral, the spiral speaks to the idea that if you can, that you're a planet, you're a little planet, you're at the center. This is you. This is your world. We're trying to draw people into your world, whatever it is. Well, there's all these meteors flying through space, and you're trying to capture one every now and then. And so here comes a meteor, and they come into your gravitational field. And normally what that means is they visit your website once. Now, hopefully they're there at least sort of kind of on purpose in some sense. Okay? Well, what we're going to do is like, hey, I can start following this person. And the way you follow them is called retargeting. Now, all of you have seen this done. How many of you went and you looked at something on eBay, and you looked at a pair of cowboy boots on eBay, and then all of a sudden you're on the New York Times website or Facebook or somewhere, and there's a pair of cowboy boots just like what you, okay? That's called retargeting. Now, retargeting is one of the most effective things that you can do with advertising money. It's one of the hardest ways to waste advertising money, if I could put it that way. And in the age of social media, where you get somebody like, you show up in their Facebook feed, you have a blog post, and they come to your site, and they read the article about where's God when there's a shooting in Orlando. You put a retargeting pixel on your site, on your articles, which the techies in the room all know how to do this. It's not very hard. And now you can set an advertising budget. It could be $1 a day. It could be $10 a day. It could be whatever is appropriate. And you will now actually follow people around with your ads all over the internet. And you could have 10 or 20 or 30 different ads running for 10 or 20, 30 other blog posts about other things. And then they come back. Or it keeps showing them more stuff on Facebook. Now you'll see this if you go to cosmicfingerprints.com. You'll start seeing ads show up in your Facebook feed, and they're all, on all kinds of different topics that have to do with evolution and origins and stuff like that. And what I do on Cosmic Fingerprints is I actually don't drive people to a landing page at first. I just get them there, and I have a pop-up. And every time they come back, about 30 seconds later, a pop-up will come up. And they can close it. Most people do. I get about 3%. But I actually get more sign-ups per dollar just putting these emotionally provocative blog posts out there and retargeting people with them than I do trying to force them to go in a straight line. Now, so it's like, get them orbiting you. So now they're orbiting. Round and round they go. They could be, and I don't have this cranked up super high. It's like a few days later, they see some ads. Maybe a few days later, they see some other ads. A few days later, I'm not stalking them. And you can all control, this is all controllable, okay? Well then, eventually I get them on my email list. But what this is saying, there's a lot of stuff you could do. So, on the upper right, live audio-visual media, retail blab, Periscope, conference calls, webinars, Skype, phone, live events, face-to-face, all of those are live where you can see it. So that's that category. On the left side is live text-based, not visual. Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, forums, groups, news, blogs. Okay? But all of that can be basically live, like it's just happening in the moment. Now, below the center line is stuff that is recorded, it's stored, it's saved up. It could last for years. Radio ads, so on the lower right is audio, visual, video, visual kind of media that are recorded. Radio, podcast, apps, YouTube, radio ads, YouTube channels, games, iTunes, Apple TV, Google Display Network. Okay? Then on the lower left, you have text that's saved up. Email, print and direct mail, newspapers, magazines, Amazon, books, Wikipedia. You get the idea. Now, my belief is that if you really, really, really want to engage people, you want one thing in each of the 4 quadrants. And you will have a significant traction with a person. So in other words, if you have a Twitter feed, or let's say a Twitter feed, a webinar, an email list, and a YouTube channel, you are engaging multiple modalities of learning with people. They experience you in video, they experience you live, maybe they're on a webinar, they actually hear your voice, maybe you do Q&A and they interact with you. They get your emails, they go visit your YouTube channel, they get your Facebook posts. That's a lot of contact. In fact, probably you can be connecting with them multiple times a day. And And write this down, about 10% of the people that show up, they will consume everything you put out and want more. Everything. That's the hyper-responsive customer. That's the flaming atheist that comes out with all guns blaring. He cannot stop obsessing about this. Now, there's a reason they can't stop obsessing about it. It's because something's off. And we all know it. Yeah, well, keep obsessing, dude. You may get traction with him, you may not, but you can engage. So, I'm going to stop here. We're going to go on further after lunch, and Marilyn's going to come and do some stuff.